again, so I
Have we got any meeting notes to review?
All right, I don't have any minutes. I promise we'll get caught up. I just decided it was more important to get the water rates sorted out.
We did the
The
bills.
summer's been crazy busy.
You got, yeah, one bill, the monthly Whitewater bill. You already signed it, but just for the recording.
Okay, which means we're up
That was it,
to
just the one?
That's it.
letter of
Cool.
support for
We have another
connection to
agenda?
58A Milford Street.
So the Sweets reached out. It's my understanding they got a variance to subdivide a property, which created a new lot, which is 58A Milford Street.
I don't know if that number's in stone, but that's what they're
Well,
using for right now.
What did you split off? The land with the
we
bond?
have, you know where my house is? You know, across from Taylor Rental. Well,
Yeah,
across from where they put in the strip club.
You have the shop on the
We have the
street,
shop and then my
and then
house
your house is
back
behind
there.
that and up the hill.
Yeah. So now we own, it's a total of 38 acres. So all behind my house
Yeah.
and then all the way up 16 going towards like behind Dudley Street. And it kind of ends right before 8 Rod Road. So,
Okay. And where's the access to the lot from?
you know where Bill's Woodworking is? The guy that makes
Yeah.
the picnic tables?
It
So,
was here a minute ago.
yeah, that's our driveway. He has the right to transverse, cross, and recross on that
Okay,
land.
so how big is the new lot?
5 acres, I think. It's 5 acres.
No.
So he can cross our land to get to his house, but that's our land and it goes straight. And we had conservation there.
In the back.
Yeah, so it goes.
So is it behind where the bog was?
No, it's nowhere. No, it's not even anywhere near. The bog was between where the shop
Oh, the
is.
bog's on the other side. that's
Totally
right.
the other side, like
Okay.
acres and acres away. This, you go straight through, and then you go upland, and you go up to the right towards Hopedale.
Yep.
And so where we're putting the house and where they mapped out the septic, you can see there's a field, and then there's 8 Rod Road.
Okay.
So it's like behind.
Is there a hold?
Wait a minute.
It's probably like behind.
That's not 8 Log Road.
It is.
It is. It says there's a big field, and then it's that 8 Rod Road, I think.
Yep.
So it's kind of like behind the antique area around Native Automotive. It's like
Yeah.
back there.
Okay. And does that also suffer from the pollution from
I would
the gas
imagine.
station that was?
I would imagine it would be
Native.
because it's even closer than my present house. It's even closer to the gas station.
So
Yeah, because that's the whole reason why the water main
Right.
came in.
So
When that was the mobile station or whatever it was.
right. And then my house, and then the Gellies and 44 Milford Street.
Okay. Now.
They were the last connections. So where we are, we're even closer to where the gas leak was.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, so that's that already sold and
No.
Is what
The-
sold
the lot.
where we're going to put the house.
Yeah.
It's already been recorded. It's already subdivided and recorded, and
Okay.
now we're just going through conservation to get everything. They already did a walkthrough and everything, so we're just trying to figure out utilities at this point.
Now, the old town tax map, and I don't think it's true of the new town tax map, has a couple of streets back there. Are those paper streets or?
They are.
There's 2 paper streets. One
there's
we use for our present driveway, and the other one is our new driveway. They're both paper roads that are on the map.
It was a paper subdivision, in fact.
And right,
Yes.
and that's all that subdivision had like 200 lots way back in the day. Little lots.
Oh, I've seen
Oh,
That's all
that.
our
The store,
land.
somebody, Patrice or
Then-
somebody sent that to me
Right, that's
once.
all
That
our
goes
land.
back to, God, I think forever.
19, I want to say 27.
I was going to say 30.
You know what else is back there?
well,
There's some old some old road or something, trolley line.
It's
it's
Boston
on the-
Post Road.
I think it's like the back of your property.
Trolley Lane was where the trolley tracks were. That was my backyard.
I think it's
Right.
Boston Post Road because it goes through.
No,
the post road.
No, it was.
No.
It was like the old original.
no, it's the
Post
trolley.
Road.
It
and
was.
then I think it was the
But
trolley.
the most modern use was in the 20s. It was the trolley line from Milford to Hopedale, up to North Avenue, to the boarding house where all the performers at Lake Emmett
Mhm.
would stay.
And,
you would
eventually
pay
on to the lake and
right, and you would pay
dance hall
I
and-
think 2 or 3 cents to go from Milford to the lake, and that is all owned by Dennis Shaheen behind
Okay.
my house,
Yep.
my old house, I should say. That was my backyard when I lived on Blue Road.
Okay.
And And Blue Road is technically 8 Rod Road extension.
According to the tax map, yeah.
Well, because it's not Mendon, so they had to give it a name in Mendon.
I should have brought the print so you could see where it is.
But in
Well,
any
so-
event, you've asked Hopedale for connection.
I asked Hopedale for connections and they
Because you're
said,
connected now.
I'm connected now at
50 is
50.
connected.
50 is.
Right, and all the homes are.
50 and
because of the pollution.
44 are.
Well,
And everybody up the street
Okay,
to
well,
Hopedale is.
I'm gonna stop you for an explanation, and what do they need, Dan? They need a letter of
So, well,
support.
so here's the problem or the situation. Like every contract, this contract is 100% lot specific.
Yes.
So this is a new lot. It's not in the contract. So Tim saw our agenda, and I got an email right away. I just read your agenda. Are you familiar with the contract? It's lot specific. He says, this will be up to the board. I only recommend if this was to be approved, town meeting approval from Hopedale will be needed prior to the connection because of that.
Okay.
They have a bylaw that
And I
requires any
Well,
understand
thing.
what I'm gonna point out is,
He's just looking, I mean,
after my ex sold the house at 10 Blue, which is in the same neighborhood, the new owners petitioned Hopedale and got connected because there was benzene in that well, or traces of it had been found. So what I'm going to just do is say, if Hopedale wants their town meeting to approve it, on the logic that every other house got connected because of that underground plume, I'm going to make a motion that we support your request, to, which is, I believe, what you're asking for,
Right.
that we support it on the exact same grounds, which is, I know the contract is lot specific. However, it is the addition of a home near the plume that, God, it's almost 20 years ago, caused the need for the water main from Hopedale up 16. And to
Which
me,
is
it's perfectly,
Hopedale's water main. But
right, to me, it's perfectly logical that I don't think they should have to make you spend $20,000 or $30,000 to drill to find you're polluted. But based on just the fact it's right there,
Right.
and all the other houses got connected for that reason, I'm going to make a motion that we write a letter of support for you. It's not because I know you, just want to go, I just want
I-
to say we're live on the air, that I've known you and your husband for, we just agreed it's 20-something years. It's got nothing to do with that. It has to do with where the property is. And
I think the very last house down the hill is not connected, but I'm not sure of that.
Now that's wrong. 'Cause
No.
I own the last house.
Oh, okay.
it is connected down to
Because apparently they
the last house. They
went to a
ripped up
fire
the
hydrant and then
connection.
had to take it back. 'cause-
I was on the board then, so the history was, there was a member of the Hopedale board who actually insisted we extend it to what we call the bottom of the orchard property, where the Muddy Brook comes through, that's been sitting across to Drive-In Bacon forever. And after both boards signed the deal, the select board in Hopedale then got in touch with the select board of Mendon, and they ripped out about a couple of 100 feet and brought it back to the end of that house. But it is, that house does have it, but solely for the reason of where this house is. And then it's right in the middle of the plume, which, nobody checks anymore. I mean, we were going to get them, we were going to get them over 20 houses at the time. I'm making a motion that we do this, and I hope Dale makes the final decision.
Absolutely.
But just for that reason, in my mind, the likelihood that that lot has pollution in it is so strong that I have to make that motion.
it sounds like the from Hopedale, basically, this is the same as everything else. We just send a letter saying
Right.
we support this request, and then it's out of our hands.
But I think it's important that
But we
the
should
letter say,
Mention- Yeah.
because it's adjacent the other polluted properties, and at least, I'm telling you, I believe there's a very strong likelihood they're going to run to the same issue, the however many homes we added to them, that it makes logical sense for us to recommend it.
Kev, I just want to say something. Not that I support this as well, but I just don't know enough about this. So I'm just my own education.
Yeah.
So,
What is Native
Well, first
Motors
off, let me
was a
just
gas
ask.
station.
I just want to ask, is this a brand new connection, or are you got an existing well that you're looking to get on?
No,
a
it's
brand
a
new
new,
lot.
It's a
it's a
vacant
new
lot.
Brand new
lot,
lot,
brand
yeah.
new lot, but it's closer to where the contaminated where the
Yeah, contaminated
contamination
soil.
started.
Right, I
It's
get it.
closer than where I presently
Okay.
am.
How long ago was it declared contaminated?
In
20, 30
the,
years
let's
ago?
see, it was in
99
the
is when this
mid to late
contract was signed,
90s.
so.
Okay, so.
What happened was, what
20,
is
25
Native
years ago.
Motors was a gas station.
Right.
And what they speculated, it had the old metal tanks.
Right,
And you know what they speculated is
Yeah,
from
we
years
did.
of the guy would have the 40-foot long dipstick
yeah,
and it would
And
hit
it
the
kept-
tanks the same place.
Right.
The tank did leak.
yeah.
The Gelly family, it was Mr. Gelly's passed, his daughter lives next, not Mr. Gelly, his,
It was O'Grady, wasn't it?
oh, Grady. I'm sorry, his daughter is
Gelly.
Mrs. Gelly now,
Yeah.
who lives next door.
Yeah.
And then there's Ruth O'Grady, who lives down on Providence Road. There are three sisters.
Yeah.
They actually were stuck with,
Clean up.
no, they were supplying water for over 2 years to all the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Because
Um,
it was their tanks that leaked.
right.
Marie Parenti was the state rep at the time, got a special bill passed in the state legislature. In fact, it got up for, I think back then it was 300 or 400,000. And I remember we installed it in the middle of winter because there was such an urge to get it. I mean, we were digging up the road in January and February
Right, right,
to get it in. It came up from the Hopedale line
yeah,
and it came up the hill and then down past the gas station and it ends at the last house on the side of
And
the conservation land across the drive-in.
yeah.
And there was a controversy at the time because Hopedale, I remember sitting in front of them in the 90s as a member of the board back then. And the DEP and the state rep had a mediation at their house with the Hopedale board, the Hopedale select board, and our board at Marie Parenti's house in Milford to try to explain to Hopedale that if they didn't allow this connection, I mean, we had the pipe in, they weren't
Yeah,
allowing the
these
connection.
houses are gonna be condemned.
There were gonna be over 20 houses condemned for not having a
Right,
water
right.
supply. And then they finally allowed it. And that's why the contract is so home specific.
I get it. So has there been anything that they work with, the gas station had to do to mitigate the soil?
It was all cleaned up, it was
Okay.
done at the time. But the
I'm just-
problem was there was a plume that spread.
Yeah,
And then there's been traces. I mean, my house was built after that. Let me see. No, I was living there, and I'm a good. Oh God, that's a couple of thousand yards where I am from there, and we had benzene from that spill in our
Yeah.
well.
yeah. I mean,
Where were you?
That was,
10 below.
so my last question,
Just-
is there any testing going on now from DP? Is anybody,
No,
because normally that's,
No,
Yeah,
but
I
we did have to, our shop's in the front of our house.
yeah,
So my house has Hopedale water.
but your shop doesn't.
My shop has well water.
okay,
And I can't tell you the thousands and thousands of dollars we put in to make sure that just to filter out the water. It's horrible, horrible water.
The-
And it goes, we run out of water. We don't eat, we just use it to flush the toilet and wash our hands because it's just a shop. We're not showering,
It's
we're
the
not
metal
drinking it.
fabrication shop. As you start going up on, if you're going to Hopedale, as you go up the hill on the left side,
Across from the strip club.
across from where the strip club is going, there's a big building.
Yeah.
Is it metal fabrication?
It's metal fabrication, that's our house.
well, I know
And-
one of the ways that they remove benzene, because stripping towers and stuff like that, I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, but they don't even know what they have on that lot yet.
Right, yeah,
Yeah, and we're closer to the plume than where my present house
right,
is.
yeah. The only reason why I
That's a
asked
good
this,
question. I wonder if they've
I'm just being devil's advocate over
done
at
any
Hopedale.
follow-up.
You know,
Oh, that's-
if-
I mean,
if
I'm
they
gonna
don't
end up at
bank on it,
Hopedale
they're gonna be
next,
like,
so-
well, has anybody tested the soils lately?
Hmm.
What, what are the concentrations?
Well, they
right
may very
now?
well
Stuff
ask
like
you to do that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. But what you're saying makes sense, and I'll
From a-
second that motion.
Thank you.
Okay,
From a
I
logical
just need for my own
standpoint, to me,
knowledge.
I have to support it.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, if it were a quarter mile away, if it were a mile back in the woods, I'd say no, but I know what you're talking about
Right.
and the history of it. And
Yeah.
so anyway, we have a second.
Okay, good.
thank you. And then my next battle will be up to Hopedale after
okay,
this.
well, I make it unanimous.
Okay.
Thanks,
So-
Ellen.
I'll revise this letter to include something about our recommendation is based on the fact that it's highly likely that this property is going to have the same levels of
Right.
contamination
and that we're closer to the plume or to the.
Correct. Now, if they want to make you test it, that's up to you and them.
Yeah,
but-
I'll do whatever.
They may know. I would assume there's been some ongoing monitoring at the O'Grady property.
Right.
Well,
But
I was surprised,
Tim
I'd
would
be
probably know
surprised
more
if
about it.
DEP didn't require somebody.
Mrs.
Getting
Gelly
there.
might know, but
Could ask or do some. I wonder if the Board of Health knows any.
There's probably some test wells nearby that they
Yeah.
go and they sample the water and,
Here, let's
and
look.
then-
well, you know, they,
Report
they,
is
they
generated.
sample the old, I would call it the Extra Mart and date myself, but the gas station up here on the top of the hill,
Yeah,
which
they
is
had another
now
leak.
just a convenience store.
Right.
What is it now? Dairy Mart?
D&B or something like
D&B
that.
Mart. I always call it the Bong Shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
didn't change its name.
They have monitoring wells there that
yeah.
are checked all the time.
Well, they had a leak there too.
They had a leak there too.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. That was going down the hill.
Right, going down the hill.
So
on
you
the
had
other
two of
side.
them going up and down the hill. But my guess is they do.
Yeah.
But to me, the person who would know would be Pat Gelly, who lives next door to it, or Pat O'Grady Gelly, because it was their property,
Right.
and she would know. But you know, maybe you could talk to them and
I can even ask Ruth too. I mean, because we bought the property from them.
yeah, why don't you ask them and just say?
I will say, hey, you have any information on it? But
I would.
we'll go
'Cause-
forward.
'cause here's the
They-
thing, over time,
Right.
those numbers decrease.
They would, or
concentrations.
Hopedale would. But you're probably going to get asked that question, like, did you test or has anybody looked at it?
Yep.
So Kerner, to be sure, but I'm just from a logical standpoint.
Right.
To me, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
That's fine. I can
And,
reach out to them.
I'm just making sure everybody knows, but it has nothing to do
I
with
would
the
just,
fact.
just to prepare
that I know
yourself for
you
going to
guys.
Hopedale. Because if I'm not on the Hopedale board, these are some of the questions I'd be
And,
asking.
and we've also faced their wrath for decades. They think there's I'll say it out loud, they think there's a plot for us to steal their water. And constantly add Mendon water, well, they say they're in a shortage right now where they're turning down connections.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, in fairness to them, they've got some issues with one of their wells, right, or maybe two. with
They have PFAS in one of their
PFAS,
wells,
Right, so,
and it's offline, so
yeah,
the last time we went to add a commercial lot or request just to add for fire connection, not for regular water,
Hmm.
they told us point blank, we can't even add a business in our town right now.
yeah, let alone that.
Or let alone Mendon. And part of our contract, if you don't know, is every year we have to go hunt and report to them that we've made due
You've tried,
diligence trying to
yeah.
connect to somebody else,
Right.
which I have an update on later, Dan, about.
There's no
Milford.
question, though, if you have high concentration of this stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
you don't wanna deal with it and
Yeah.
then treat it.
Well, thank you guys.
That makes it just makes sense. So.
We'll see.
It's-
I agree.
And
I'm
Maureen,
hoping
it's always
hoping
good to see
Hopedale
you.
agrees. Thank you guys.
It's always good to see
Nice
you.
to meet you, Alice, and
Very
your
nice to
wife.
meet you too.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Feel better.
Have a
evening.
great night.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, one meeting down, one more to go.
So you're headed there now?
Yeah, I'm going upstairs.
Okay.
Oh, that
Take
one.
care.
Okay. Okay.
Who's that on the agenda, Kev?
Consider signing the agreement for 23 Cape. So I assume we got the final agreement?
Yes, and I emailed it to you. I have it
Yeah,
here.
I read it.
So this is the final agreement. This
Is
was
this the one you sent?
overnighted to
Hey, it
us.
was them.
Okay.
It has been signed and notarized by their attorneys. Assuming you approve, I then
Has-
bring it to Tim for Hopedale to
Has
sign.
our attorney looked at it?
Yeah, this is, so the two attorneys did their thing.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll get a bill, but,
Yes, God forbid we should do anything without her looking at it.
so it looks like. The problem, I hope that we had a hard time connecting with Hopedale's attorney, but they worked it all out. And Cindy made a really good point, which was that originally this was between the two towns.
Yes.
And she said that Blue Water needed to be a party of it because otherwise
So now it
was
is a-
unenforceable with regards to Blue
Right,
Water.
so now it is a
It's a
third-party
three-way,
agreement.
right? Because it really is.
Or as a lawyer would say, a tripartite agreement.
Um,
So we
Big
already
words.
voted to approve this.
well, I
so-
think I would suggest you take a formal vote to sign this document
I
and then
will
sign
make-
it in the meeting.
Okay, seeing as the contract
With
has
blue
been
ink.
approved by more attorneys under the sun, I would make a motion to sign it. And remind anybody who might be listening, this does not mean we endorse the project at 23 Cape Road, but that we are agreeing to a fire connection should it ever be approved.
Motion.
Hang on, just-
I just, so that don't attack me for daring to say,
So it's
And
it looks like there's 3 spots. I don't know if there's room to print all your names after, or what's the bottom section? Or vote to authorize the chair to sign. I don't know how you want to do it.
I think we all should sign, it's a contract.
Yeah.
Then it says print name, print title,
Yeah,
that's Hopedale.
You
That's
can
for
print it
Hopedale.
next to it too, right?
yeah,
I guess.
thing and then
I'll
chair.
print it next to it.
Yeah.
Um,
What else we got? We got on, is there gonna be an update on, the study going on right now? I
Um,
don't know if you got that on.
I don't even know if I
Extended.
put it in the agenda.
it is,
There's,
okay,
there's,
good.
You did.
Okay,
I
good.
don't really have anything for you.
Okay.
Well, actually,
Well, actually,
I
wanna
have
find
a
out,
quick
did-
update.
Did you have a meeting with, Upton? Or did we postpone that?
I believe they met with Upton. I was not able to go
'Cause-
because of the
Because
beach.
he put it off because of me,
Yeah.
and then he never got back to me because I told him I was on vacation.
Yeah,
and
I
then-
believe they met.
Okay, that's
I
good.
ran into Jack the other day who said, what did he say? They're following up on a meeting, something about looking at town parcels. I'm not really sure where that got left off. And then you said you had some info in Milford. I mean, we were saying almost before the meeting started, I was talking to the Sweets. I think it'll be interesting to see what this study comes back with. But like you were saying, it sounds like we're not having a lot of luck from
Well, what do you expect them to say? We're in a drought.
these.
I mean, with all due respect.
That's
Dan,
true. Now's not the
I
time
mean,
to.
going around to people when we're in a massive drought and
that would
saying,
be
"Do you think you
acceptable.
could give us some water?" is a non-starter because of the drought.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, you know, forget you talking about 100 years from now. I mean, everybody just goes, "What do you mean you want water?"
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, what do you have next? Water rates?
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna have a hearing in October, right?
So,
Well, I provided Dan some information.
So Vin sent me a spreadsheet, which I didn't use, but it showed me a better way of doing the math that I didn't think of. So that was very helpful.
So I don't know if you noticed in my sheet, all the formulas that link to even other pages.
Oh yeah, no, so
You followed it.
I guess what I'm looking for you is maybe I can just review where we're at and then get some guidance from you on what direction you want to go.
Oh, us-
So
us-
the problem,
Forward,
it's
yeah.
the same issue it's always been. I was previously saying I didn't think our revenue, I think we overestimated our revenue.
Yeah.
What happened is I looked at purchase of water, saw that it was going up and assumed it was because of revenue. It was because of the friggin' leak, because it's always because of the leaks.
Right.
So that's where things got a little messed up.
So let me just back up there.
So-
Always should have, I call it a fluff factor or.
Well, I'm just talking about our budget,
Well,
the
there's-
enterprise budget.
There's a fundamental fact. If you want guidance, there's a fundamental factor. Hopedale bills us at X rate. We need to charge higher than X rate.
Right. Well, so I have several questions I want to ask you at how you want to structure
So
this.
that is my guidance.
But
Well, the other thing is too, when you're gonna bid out a project or when you're gonna appropriate money for a project, there's always the contingency,
Right.
right? So you want that contingency
In the
value
rates.
number two into the
Well,
rates or the estimated
Sorry.
water usage and stuff like that. So because that
Yeah.
gives you that.
I
We
mean,
can always have a
little bit of
surplus, but
buffer.
we shouldn't have a
right.
deficit.
Well, we
Right.
lost $50,000 of water in that leak. Our loss was 32%.
Yeah,
It's outrageous.
especially for when you've
So,
got such a small system.
I didn't put on the agenda. I think we should call up Jesse and do a leak survey. It's been about 8 months. I think it would be good
I
before
thought
we
we
get into the fall.
authorized that last month.
I don't remember if we talked about. I was thinking as I was going through this, we should
That's
have
why
them
we
out.
would have the minutes.
I know. I know.
All right, you want a motion? I make a
Right.
motion. We do
I think
another
we should,
leak
I think we should do a
detection
leak survey and just get it done.
test. I just made a motion.
Second.
And honestly, looking at this, we might even consider doing it every 6 months. It's not
Ooh.
that much money.
Well,
Yeah,
let's
it's
just
cheap
do
money.
But let's see what he comes up
It's
with.
time to do another one anyway, so
Let me just make that a vote so I don't lose it.
it's
So-
coming on the minutes. But I know we discussed this.
So I guess with the rates, it sounds like the direction we want to go is some sort of tiered structure, which we didn't have. We have 153 customers. We do have, we have 2 commercial users that use a ton of water. So any direct is going to affect the 2 of them. But you also have several residential people that are using a stupid amount of water, and I don't think it's wrong to ask them to pay for it. At least
No,
far as
you're
I
right.
think.
That's a good point. So,
You know,
yeah.
if you're using 14,000 cubic feet,
Declining block rate, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Kev.
Yeah, my suggestion is, however you structure the rate, and Vin, I think it's great you hear, I'm willing to say you two work it out. It should be, we take in more than we have to pay out,
I agree.
and the ratepayers should understand it fairly easily.
Yeah.
Whatever
Right.
system it is. And I'm willing to leave it to you guys to work out whatever tiered or rated is, just like the last time, Dan, you came back to us with numbers.
Yeah, well, so
And I know
maybe
you weren't here.
we want to sit down sometime. I mean, I built this to just do four tiers.
That's what I would recommend. yeah.
Hopedale's going up. So Hopedale's going up 3.5%. So
Yeah.
I think whatever we do, the rates need to go up 3.5%. But then I think, depending on what your thoughts are, I think we should mess around with these tiers to maybe
Right.
try and shift some of the impact.
So let me just ask you, I'm
certain
sure you've got a
customers.
copy of what Hopedale's rate structure is.
I have hoped. Yep.
And they've probably got
Yeah.
an inclining block.
And I
rate,
was
right?
just going to ask, did their capital
Give me a
charge
second.
go up as well?
Capital charge is not changing.
But we just passed that one through.
We just passed that one through. I don't know if we wanted to talk about our capital charge.
Our capital charge is now, what, 3 years old?
It's $12.50.
It's $12.50 a quarter, and we did that so it did not exceed $50 a year at the start, which is now, what, 3 years old?
Yeah.
I have no problem raising that slightly, because
Yeah,
we've
like
seen how the
15.
cost of things can wipe it out.
Right.
But when we first started it, I mean, if we want to make it 100 and divide it by 25 a quarter, is fine with me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
just-
go over that.
No.
That might be even a
Do we,
big thing.
is there a base charge too?
So
or-
what we were, let me go back because we asked. So Hopedale has 4 tiers: 500, 2,000, 4,000, and 4,000 plus.
Okay.
With our system, that, let me just plug it in. What did I say? 5,000, 2,000. That results in right 524. It would be 19 customers in the bottom tier, 86 in the middle, 36 in the third tier, and 12 at the top for a total of 153. Let me share this because I have some percentages.
Can you put it up on the screen?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Can the homeowners
Everyone will be
That
able
way,
to see
yeah,
this.
who just might be
Oh,
watching
I
see it
don't
on
wanna
the
do
screen?
that.
nice thing about that,
Window.
you're not gonna,
So if,
the elderly people,
sorry.
if people don't use a lot of water, you're not hammering them. It's the people that use a lot of water.
Yeah,
that-
we
that
also
can
have people
afford
who are connected but don't use it, and
And there are people who, there's no meter there anymore, but they're still paying the rates.
Yeah, paying.
well, so that was what we did. So we previously, our current rate structure, the first 50 cubic foot, they pay a flat $35, 0 to 50.
That's a base charge.
And the reason for that was because there's about 6 zero accounts
And
that
now they're
we
paying
felt should pay
something.
something.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, so that's a base
Um,
charge, and they pay that every quarter,
They pay that every
Yeah,
quarter.
35
So
bucks, okay.
you could. This is a ton of.
And then we bill the
Gibberish.
consumption on top of that, so everybody pays that $35 base charge per quarter.
Right. So this.
Okay.
I mean, this is our current.
That's high.
I
Compared to
also
some towns.
I also
This
know
is our
that
current
now
structure.
having 4 people,
If you will.
having gone from 2 to 3 to 4 people
Yeah.
in my house, I've watched the quarterly bill go up. The interesting thing is 1/4 of my current bill is the Hopedale charge and our charge.
Right, yeah. We get 28 bucks a quarter.
Yeah.
For,
So
the base.
I guess like if
We're
you look
not-
at these
we're
two
not too far
columns,
off, considering we purchased that water
Yeah.
from somebody else.
this is the split of the tiers.
Yeah,
So if we take Hopedale, so 500, 2,000, so those different intervals, that's how it would divide up among our customers.
yeah.
So of these 12, 2 of them are commercial users, the greenhouse and the pop and cork, and then the rest of them are residential. All the other commercial users like use trivial amount of water.
What about the Gasco complex?
They don't actually use a whole lot of water. Somewhere around 2,000 cubic foot. Our average bill is about 1,500 to 2,000 cubic feet.
So that's 3 buildings, though. That's Agrico, him, and the
yeah,
marijuana store.
they don't use a lot. Flat Out doesn't use a lot in Hydrea. They're like a house
I
basically.
probably use more than they do.
We do have some
Look at the
customers, and
dollars, yeah.
I assume they're watering their lawns. Like we have somebody on Dudley Road that get a $1,500 water bill. They use
Yeah,
15,000
there
cubic
was-
feet of water.
I hope
Right.
they know they're violating the
So-
water ban.
But they all got a
Well,
letter.
There was somebody on, what is the name of the street? The little street,
Talbot Parker,
yeah, Parker.
one of those.
Parker.
His lawn was very happily watering itself at 3 o'clock.
A lot of those
afternoon.
have wells though.
For watering.
Dudley does not have wells. Talbot, there's a lot of them on wells. So I guess that would be the first question: is if you,
And Braza has a well to water the.
yeah, he has a separate well.
He has a well for the lawn, for the mini lawn and the bathroom.
Goes back to.
So Dan, you're on something good there. I think.
I mean, if we just steal Hopedale's tiers and leave it
Yeah.
alone.
All right, what is the average increase then for people? Do we
So
know
I,
that?
I did not break this down into average bill and all that. That's a whole nother project that we can get
That's
into.
easy to do, though. You've got the basics there. I've got that in my
Um,
sheet there we
okay.
can pull out.
I would say
So I
keep
can work
going
on
that
that.
way.
So if we
Yeah.
take our rate, and I had it in here, it's 10. So if we go up by 3.5%, our rate would just be 10.47.
And what is it now?
It's 10.12.
Oh, fine.
Did you take this, is some of this off of my sheet?
The style, this is a
Okay.
whole new sheet, but
Okay.
This
yeah,
is our
I was
sheet.
gonna say, yeah, because that looks similar to
But
what I had.
what you did that I didn't think of, I was doing a formula on every single bill. I didn't think of it this way. You could pull out the usage, so I have the total usage in tier one, and then I do just multiply that by the rate, and it simplifies the Excel formula.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I,
Well, if this is the direction we're going in, that's the type of rate we're talking about. Mike, and you're asking for direction for us to stay that way. That is not a humongous increase. at
right,
all.
but this
No.
is still a flat rate, so I would increment this rate.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to get rid of this, so like right now, 0 to
No, you
500
can still do
is
3.5,
free.
but it just affects it affects all the
You
tiers
know,
a little bit
It
different.
affects people.
So
Yeah.
we'd have to figure out.
But the low
We can't do
users
that.
are impacted the least.
Well, it's hard because you have low users that are like elderly that don't use a lot of water, and then you have 5 or 6 vacant users that are basically parking on commercial land that are using the value of the water connection to increase the value of their property.
Yes.
And so it's kind of this weird.
And as an
like,
assessor, I can
one
tell
should
you
pay
that
and one shouldn't.
every property in town connected to the system is higher valued than everyone else.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
We have them all earmarked that they have water.
yeah.
Um,
That's big, you don't have the public ones.
So I think the direction is, Dan, is flesh this out. And if we're talking about that kind of increase where we're talking, not dollars, but 30, 40 cents to the current rate, I mean, we're going where it should be. We're not out to make, for
No.
those listening, we're not out to try to make money. We're trying to cover our costs.
Well, I think it's gonna be more than that, though, because you said we were shy because of.
Well,
I
then
think-
we have
so
to
I
get the
think-
fudge factor.
I think we have two
Right,
things.
yeah.
I think we need to have a 3.5% increase to match Hopedale. Then I think we have to have another smaller increase to fix the deficit, which quite honestly is water leakage.
I put another % on there.
So I think we got to deal with that, and then
Is
I
that
think we
too-
need to look
Do you
at
think that's
making
too
these
high to
tiered.
cover that? If we're going 3.5 to cover Hopedale, is going to 4.5 too
Yeah.
high? Or do we go to 4?
I don't know, you need to calculate, you said 50,000 gallons, so,
I mean,
so what does that lost revenue account to? And then, so you. gotta
Bear in
make up
mind,
that
the
dollar
average
amount.
civilian is looking at, the
Well,
average
so-
consumer is looking at anywhere from 8 to 11%, depending on what month it is.
Yeah.
4% is rather trivial.
Yeah.
So last year, and using all this same formula,
Yeah.
we would have estimated 115. We took in 114, 130. Like if you look, it's on the screen. 130, 130. This year we took in a little more. So under the current rate structure, we would take in 129, and obviously we don't know what the actual receipts are. But like I said, we don't know Hopedale's increase. So just Hopedale's increase would bump everything up to 1047. That's 3.5%. 35, and this actually becomes like 36.
What happens if we make it 4%?
Let me hang on. So that's 1052.
Which still not a huge raise.
It's not, the only thing, we got such a small customer base that
Is that enough to cover it?
I don't think it's gonna generate, I don't think that 0.5% gonna generate enough.
So that gets us to about 130,
Well,
which
what
is a
would
much better
1%
number.
do?
But then we didn't mess with these tiers. So like this top user, I don't know, how much you would increment each tier. So this is these two tiers. So right now your 0 to 50 is paying nothing. They're paying $36 flat.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to mess with that at all, or just charge them the water rate and leave it alone. I mean, let me see how that changes it. If we do 1052 and make that 0.
No, we need that
122.
base in there.
Yeah, you need a base, but then you need to charge them for somebody.
124. So it's difference of $2,000 if we just get rid of the base and
I don't want to get rid of the base.
No, you gotta keep the
We
base.
put that base in there for a reason.
But the thing is, so, you got 15 to 4,000, oh, no, you get
look
zero,
at
you get
sorry,
0
it's
to
a little
500.
clunky.
Yeah.
It's 50 right now. So what do you want to make it?
What would happen if we made the increase 4.5%?
Hang on. So 10.12 to 1.0. 1.5%.
Yeah.
So hang on. 1058. And if you changed 35,
Same 4%.
4.5, you said, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, 4.5.
36, I'm gonna make it 36.58.
Yep.
So now you're at 134. I mean, this is just water. That includes the hydrant fees. I would assume we would, whatever percentage we're gonna raise all these fees.
Yes.
Right.
We'll do that later. I just don't know then if you want to look at changing these tiers.
No.
So the
no,
first
I
0 to
think-
50 is flat. Then 51 to 2,000 is 1058, and then 1,500 to 4,000, I would make them more. So I don't know how. I mean, what do you normally increment tiers? Percentage or
Well,
like go up another percent?
what I've been doing, we're happy with the tiers where we're at, so I'll go 3.5. Actually, I had like a 6.5% increase last year because of PFAS, and it just, I went across the board. But, and I'll show you how to, you
But I
probably
mean, to
already know how
initially
do it.
set the tiers, what would be between each tier?
Oh, I don't know. I have to go back and look at my
Yeah.
sheet.
I can
Well,
look too,
why
but-
we do
Yeah.
this, Vin, do you have time to work with him
We can
between
sit
now
down
and the
and-
next meeting?
I do, yeah, because we got a month.
Well, so I forgot. We changed our rules. We only have to post it with 14 days notice.
Okay.
So if the
but-
water hearing is on October 6th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
October
8,
6th is
9,
a
10,
public
11,
hearing for this?
Yes.
Ooh, we gotta
12,
have our
13,
shit together.
14. As long as we get our shit together by the September 19th, we got 2 weeks to look at it, and then bring something
Well,
back for the
suggestion
commission to
is-
look at.
is can
So
you
if
guys
we
meet
want to,
I
between
can
now and
meet,
the
and then we
19th?
email, we generate something, we email it, Dan will email it to the board. Obviously, we can't discuss it
Okay.
because of the open meeting law.
I was
And
gonna
then
say,
just to
having
give
just gotten dinged on the Board of Assessors, you guys have the right to work on it.
We can.
Dan, you can send it to us.
right,
When we hit reply, you only reply to Dan. not
right. You can
reply
send me your
all.
comments.
We cannot.
Yes,
and
we
I can
cannot do
reply.
You
reply
can't do
all.
reply all. He can. We can't.
We can't. We
We
reply solely to Dan.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause it-
I have no problem. I don't know how you feel, Alan, but I have no problem leaving it with the two of you to work out the structure and the fee, given the guidance we just had.
I would like to have it all together, a minimum week prior to our next meeting. That way there we get time to digest it and present it, right?
Well, you need it by the 19th in order to send the notice to people that we're meeting on the
Alright.
6th.
Well, we could have
It's
another.
2 weeks,
we
yeah.
could do another meeting. Let me just close this out so I don't.
Well, we're gonna have to do a meeting to approve it ahead of time.
Or meet right before the hearing, but I mean,
What? I got too many things on the
let me
phone
just
now.
get this back to.
So we're talking the 6th, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Or we can move the hearing too. I mean, we just need to probably do it. in
No,
that
I
time
would,
frame.
I would like to leave it where it is. It's on our familiar night, but, I.
Well, when's the rate increase go in effect? Not till,
It already did, July 1.
but I'm saying.
So we're recording
Our
the
rate
rate
increase will go
What-
into effect with our second bill, which will go out. Let me just confirm the date.
But I'm saying what we're voting on, we're gonna vote for a new increase, but that won't
effective
go in.
immediately on
It
the
would
next
go
bill.
effect immediately.
Okay,
on the
okay,
next
so
bill.
for the December read,
Well, I
right?
mean, so, Dan, you said
Yeah,
we
let me
need to
find
know
the
by
date.
the
Hang on.
19th?
Yeah, hang on a second.
Well, I was gonna say, you gotta get that notice out to everybody.
The next bill gets mailed in October, so we basically the day after this October 6th, I'm gonna do the new bills with the new rate.
Well, if you have to know by the 19th to
Okay.
notify people, could we do a meeting on the 15th?
Well, the town meeting is the 19th. Are you all going to the town meeting? Can we post a 5-minute meeting? If you just talk, I mean, that's kind of a pain. We gotta record it, but although no, I'm gonna have to deal with the tech. That's probably no good.
When is the special?
Special. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong month. Never mind. Forget me.
That was in October.
Yeah,
I didn't
November.
know.
I'm
Okay.
dumb.
Well, can we meet 2 weeks from now is the 15th?
We can meet on the 15th. We might have to struggle for space because we'll probably be down here somewhere, but that's not a big deal.
To me, it would be a 10-minute meeting.
Yeah, I know,
So,
I was just gonna go with
why
the
don't we-
rates and, well, motion approved, yep.
So let me put that on the calendar.
Can we try for the 15th for like a quick meeting?
7 o'clock. Location to be determined. Probably here.
Yeah, we can do the 15th.
Oh no. Well,
What?
this will be your new assessor's office, so I don't know. We'll
Can we
figure
go
it
to,
out.
can we go to?
Yeah, they're moving her
library?
next week.
Can we go to
apparently
library?
now. Yeah, I'll find a location.
Yeah, but I mean, the Inspector General stopped the construction.
What
Yeah,
about
I
the
know.
police station? They must have a meeting room.
The problem with it's locked down, so if you
Can't use it.
Well, no, you can use it, but if they're out in a call, there's nobody to let us in the building. So
How about
it's,
the fire,
it's
fire
risky.
department's up a meeting room?
they do have a space there where you could, but there's no tech. So we go to,
Oh.
we go to the library if
Right.
AgCom, we'll figure it out. That's a solvable
All
problem.
right, I just put it down for the 15th in like a half an hour. If you guys can, even if you guys work it out at that meeting,
Well, let me know if
No,
when you
we'll
have,
have it-
we
we'll
can
have it
connect.
prepped.
If you got time,
He's,
we can sit down.
he's more than halfway there. We just need to kind of fine tune it.
I just need your, what do
Um,
what do you want the number? So just let me know when you get some time.
I was gonna say
some
too, what I,
afternoon
in my,
hey,
and then I'll.
yeah,
that's our senior boat in the background.
Oh, that's where that picture's from. Yeah.
That's from like 4 years ago.
So my
That's
it's
when
good
we
on the
won.
screen. My screensaver is all the parks pictures. So that's the
Okay.
lifeguards.
all right, so rate meeting,
On the
10:15.
15th.
So some afternoon when you're back in town, we could meet or something. I don't know. Between now and then,
Yeah,
All right, that does that one.
what I'll do is I'll bomb out of work.
So if we
early.
buried
we
that,
could do that too.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I generally work later, so I don't mind meeting at 5, 6, 7 o'clock. I mean, I
usually
do
when I get
have-
out of work, though, I don't want to do
I know.
anything, man.
That
he wants
so-
to go home and crash.
I do, or watch the news and crap. I'd rather just get. out of
I
work
gotta
and
tell
meet
you,
during the day,
you know, I joke, I'm not a senior. I had to go to Boston every day this week, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and yesterday for an international assessors conference.
Yeah.
By the time I get home, after walking around all day and meetings all day long, I've been sound asleep by 9 o'clock every night.
Yeah.
This is the longest I've been awake
Oh,
at night. Because by 8 o'clock I'm like,
oh, I know. I am too, and I'm younger than you. That's how I.
no, it's just that.
Going so hard during the day too. By the
Well,
time you get home.
I got named to a task force on the national level,
Yeah,
and we met every single day for 2 hours in the middle of this thing,
yeah.
taking advantage of the fact we were all there in person. We got our task accomplished. Our report done. Well, I have to write the report for them now, because silly me said, "Well, I used to be a professional writer." Okay.
Oh,
Now, did Hopedale add anything to the fire connections?
No, the Hopedale is not changing whatever that number is. I'll double check with him. Hang on, I can look at the bill. But I think in the past when we've raised rates, we just raised the fire by the same percentage.
We did.
Let me find Hopedale's bill and
so
just double
Hopedale.
check.
they
By the
sold
way,
it for
speaking of
3.5.
that building on Cape Road, let me see if this pops up.
Where is the
Um,
Hopedale bills?
Dismiss. Just see, where did it go?
So Dan, you said Hopedale at 3.5 though, right?
Hopedale's going up 3.5% across the board.
Okay.
Hang on. Hydrant, senior. No. Oh, Fireline. Hopedale's charging us the same 150 and 100.
Okay, just
Political.
speaking of that building at
And then
20,
we're charging 165
Cape
and
Road.
110 because we went up
Blue-
10% last year.
Blue Water asked Gene Berthold
Oh yeah, I
to
heard.
give them a guesstimate. And the guesstimate is the building would be assessed at 26.5 million and contribute $420,616 a year at the current tax rate.
Now, this is.
How much a
at
year?
23 or?
This is a 22's rate.
The
This is
proposed-
23
the proposed
Cape
warehouse at
Road,
23 Cape.
the proposed building would pay at the fiscal 22 tax rate, would you be paying $420,616 a year in taxes to the town? This is not an insignificant
I-
project
I
for the
mean,
town.
I guess not for this board, but I have.
And it
my
would be
opinions.
valued at 26.5 million initially.
Now,
mean-
the other question, which is still relevant to the price increase, is there any change in the fire hydrant charge?
No, that is bound by contract, I think. And they haven't changed. I'm surprised they haven't changed that at all. If they did, though,
Let's-
the town has to pay.
Let's not mention it.
Um,
I'm with you.
I do think, as part of this Blue Water thing, there may be a change in the total number of hydrants, and I already had said to them that if they add hydrants, that
They're
we'd
paying
likely
for
be
it.
making them pay that per hydrant fee for that extra hydrant.
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't
I
think
mean,
they care
At 23.
at 23.
Yeah.
And what my comment is, if you're rich enough to pay $460,500 something dollars a year in property taxes, pay the hydrant fee.
I mean, they're going to replace a huge section of water main that we couldn't dream of replacing. So
Yeah, well, that's the cost of doing business.
I think, as much as I know there's issues with the warehouse, it would be a win for the water department
Does
in
that
terms of
mean
customers having to pay for stuff.
Does that mean we should actually count the fire hydrants and modify the contract a little bit?
Well, you know what I figured out? The middle hydrants on Witten Road, they deactivated them. I think they pulled the gate boxes and buried the valve, turned them off, pulled the gate thing and buried it, so it's just off. Because the middle ones are dead. The very last one's still on, and we don't pay for it. But I think he left it on just for flushing. But yeah,
I think we should not
very
raise
weird.
the issue until Hopedale does.
Very, very weird.
You've
Every
heard-
time I dig into this, I find some weird thing that I didn't know before.
I'm a firm believer in until Hopedale raises the issue, why should we?
Yeah.
Because if we raise it, guess what? We're gonna get
Oh,
tucked
yeah,
to
it's
us.
on. So, you verified that the hydrants are inoperable?
Just those. So down Witten Road,
Yeah.
the first hydrant at Gasco is good. It leaks, but it's viable.
That's the one we raised.
Then there's a hydrant kind of where that gate used to be. That hydrant is totally dead, and we couldn't find a box. Then there's another one further down the hill, same situation. Then there's the one at the way bottom, and again, we couldn't find a box, but it's on because they were
They get the
concerned about
box-
doing a flow test.
The boxes are probably just,
Well, no, we went with the detector. We dug everywhere. I had Whitewater or Hydrotech, whoever did the flow test, Whitewater. Because he was nervous about doing a flow test without a gate valve in case something went wrong and the hydrant got stuck open or something.
A good thing to be concerned
So
about.
he did it,
Why?
but they were.
who owns the gates and the hydrants? Us or?
We do, but that's all the stuff things have just happened over the years, and
but they never
up
been
until
used
recently,
them.
you couldn't even get down there. It was a jungle.
But you got to remember, they were put in decades ago and never used.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the area that you and I walked, right?
No, this is going down behind the gas station.
There was an
Okay.
affordable house. They were
We should go
built
back
for
there
what was
someday.
going to be an affordable housing development in the mid to late '80s that
Yeah.
never went through.
But they put the infrastructure in.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was actually
But they're all going to get pulled
laid
by
out
blue water, so it
for
won't matter.
Yeah.
8 or 10 businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, that's millions of dollars to replace that pull that asbestos cement line, and
Yeah, I can see that's.
I just look at it and go-
That stuff.
and if things go according to plan, we'll have a nice new meter pit on Plains Road.
Yeah.
Courtesy of
I emailed Ty
Okay.
Sales to ask for an update on our tech because I think we
Um,
could do the Dudley Road meter once we get the other
and it's
bits in.
and it's probably not going to be Amazon, because if you don't know, Amazon is not only shelving all their projects, they're closing the Milford, not the brand new one. They're closing the Milford one up on Industrial Road and 7 other last mile shops.
Why, what's up with Bezo?
And
Well, he's not there anymore, but they overbuilt at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
If you don't know the story, like Ken O'Brien, who's on the board with me here, he's
Yeah.
the assessor in Uxbridge. At the corner of 16 and 146 in Uxbridge, they just built it's the prime return center for New England. They notified him a month ago they're mothballing it for a minimum of 3 years. So they're paying taxes on an empty building.
Oh, my God.
And by the way taxes work on an industrial building, it's the potential
Yeah.
of the building. So
So you're
basically,
still paying full pay, yeah.
well, what you do is you look at the square foot of the building and
Yeah.
you say, okay, right now, buildings that size are renting at this amount per square foot. Therefore, that's its potential times this formula, which goes lower because it's empty. They're going to be paying like $1 million a year in taxes on a subject building. No, Amazon fired the senior vice president in charge of all their delivery things. Anything, Greendale Mall in Worcester that they tore down, that's not going to open for a couple of years.
I didn't even know that was gone now.
Oh, they have the new building is all built.
Really? Amazon?
Yeah. They bought Greendale Mall, shut the whole thing down, ripped it down to the ground, and built a giant box warehouse. That's not gonna turn on for 3 to 4 years.
Holy shit.
They overbuilt,
Yeah.
and they're trying to unload them. The interesting thing is they sucked up every available warehouse in Eastern Mass. When you read the real estate letters, that there was no space anywhere. People are begging them now to sublease
Oh,
from
really?
them.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna have a problem getting it.
Yeah.
The new one at the old glass factory in Milford will stay open.
Yeah.
But the what they call the last mile. Anyway,
Yeah.
that would be here. Are we done with water rates?
Yeah, so we'll
Yeah,
Okay.
so the plan is you and I
connect the
we're
meeting
gonna
at
connect
15th,
and we'll have something
Okay.
together for the
and then a
15th.
hearing on the 6th. I will do probably just do a postcard to everyone if that
Okay.
works.
I have an update on the water sewer study, which is I was contacted by both Jack, the planner, and by you, Dan, about, I guess, Milford blew them off, our study group. Milford is not having a commission meeting until the end of September because their chairman, who is a devout Jew, his daughter is living on a kibbutz in Israel, and he went over for 2 months to visit her.
Now, this is the select board or
The Water Commission.
water commission?
So I talked to one of the other commissioners today. They don't expect to have a meeting till the last week in September. I will be notified when the meeting is, and I will be put on the agenda. However, they don't have any water at this time. And I said, well, we're not trying to get water at this time. We just want to talk to you about the future. And the problem is they have the Dilla Street well field still needs to be rejuvenated. Everything else is online, but they're two affordable apartment complexes. One just is getting turned on now that also contributed $500,000 toward the revitalization of the Dilla Street field. That's coming online now, phase one. There's a phase two coming. That's going online by the end of the summer, and there's another one near the Birch Street Fire Station that they expect to come online by the end of the calendar year. And so everything they got back is now allocated to them
Right. Yeah.
because that was the deal they all made when they were being built, was they chipped in. So they're waiting for the Dilla Street field to get fixed, and then they will know what they have. And right away he said, we're not in the mood to give out water to anybody. And I said, no, we just want to talk about the future and potential. And now that you have a new owner, and he said, what I'll do is as soon as the chairman gets back and they talk about scheduling a meeting, he will put me on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want them to? Because they basically they had a script. They were asking a series of questions.
I
to
will get the script from
gain
them.
information. To then
Yeah, I'm
in the
being put
study.
on.
And then if the information is no, at least they know. that.
I got to tell you, they're not
Right.
going to meet with them based on what he
That's-
said. Is He
yeah.
knew about the call.
Okay,
They're seeing me as a courtesy to, shall we say, an old friend.
right.
And they'll probably tell me no, but at least we'll get a hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the question. Was just they're trying to understand both
And-
water and sewer too.
Right.
Even if water's not viable.
And then the other thing I'm going to broach with them, which may not be in the study, is since they're rebuilding all the interconnections to area towns, so the Bellingham interconnection on Grove Street is being upgraded sometime between now and next summer to full working condition at all times, as opposed to a little shack they have around it, a pipe in the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I want to say is, if you're connected,
Presumably there's a pump inside the little shed, but.
yeah, but they're actually going to formalize it and upgrade it and make it available. I'm going to ask them how they would feel if we interconnected with Bellingham near there on an emergency basis. If we were to do that at some point in the future, how would they feel about that?
I do think that would be something we could get a grant for, like an MDP grant.
Yes, and I'm also going to remind them, because none of these guys know the history of the wheeling fee through Hopedale. I just want to make sure they all know that. Now, Dave Condry, who ran the company when the White family owned it, stayed on as the manager of the company.
Yeah.
So he knows the history, but the three commissioners have no clue. So what I'd like to do is explain that to them, that here's where we are, and the only reason we're coming to them is when Milford owned it, Milford owned it as a private company, Milford Water Company
Yeah.
existed. They didn't have the water. Now that it's owned by the town, we need to be in touch with them every so often to ask them to fulfill our contract to Hopedale.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah,
my
part of
entry
our
into the meeting.
obligation. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's a
Condry's
support
going to
for-
tell them, no, we don't have any water.
Yeah.
And then they're going to say, nice try, Kev.
But the second question is, glad you mentioned it too, would be an emergency connection, interconnection with them or something like that.
and remind them that only 2 or 3 years ago they gave water to Hopedale for an emergency for a day.
Yeah,
So all that interconnect exists.
yeah.
You know, if we have an emergency someday and Hopedale can't spare it, you know, if it's a 1 or 2 day emergency due to a leak, would they be
Yeah.
willing to let us wheel through Hopedale again?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
oh, yeah, first,
I don't know if things have changed. I
I
think
can
it sounded like they had a
say,
very difficult relationship with Hopedale too. But that again, that thing that all
Who
may have
doesn't
changed
have a
now.
difficult relationship with Hopedale?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I wish we just had our
how
own public
long
water
would it
supply.
take?
That would,
Why? That I think
Don't-
that's the next phase of this.
it is,
to
that's
start
where
looking
this whole
inward
study's
now.
gonna go. We need to find out.
Build your own.
Yeah, yeah, no question.
Well, nobody's going to give us water.
It's
And
huge money.
the
though, Kevin,
cost
you
of
know.
interconnecting
You
and
gotta
running
get a water
from any
tank,
town
and pumps and
is-
wells and,
Yeah, but you know what? I think what they want, the purpose of the study, is we have a lot of business people, one in particular who's very large and sells a lot of things that people drive in
right.
and is diversifying into real estate before cars go away. By the way, he's buying up all the houses on North Avenue. Did you hear that?
Oh yes, that seems.
They're
to
walking
be the
around with a
next-
checkbook, knocking on doors.
Is he really?
Yep.
He still hasn't finished it. One over there by the
Oh,
school.
you don't even want to know what they're putting in there now.
Oh my God.
He threw our inspector off the property
Tax
personally.
all
Oh
over
yeah.
there.
Like
Now,
I told you
across
that.
the street's his mother's house or something, right?
Mother and mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, he's got the mother and
No, his
mother-in-law live there?
well, he's divorcing the wife too, but he put the mother-in-law. Anyway,
I love
anyway, I think going back, I think the intent of the study is, if it's feasible, at least we have a blueprint. But I actually think the study is to shut everybody up and once and for all with a definitive cost study and projected cost to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the name on the air, but all right, Mr. M, this is the cost of bringing water and sewer to all your buildings.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Alicante, this is the cost of bringing it to you. All right, people on
Well, any
on 16
Proposed or
and-
development, really.
any proposed
Yeah.
development, and then to say, and then you could at least extrapolate out the connection fees to people.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
I don't think the average business person or resident has a clue what it would cost at today's rates or tomorrow's rates to put a system in. It's
yeah,
just,
it's a huge number.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's
It's
simply just not
prohibitive.
done. I think there's so few water systems that were installed. What was Jack telling me that thing they did that they were telling him that was like the first new
Carver.
system in so many years.
You're probably talking 25 to $30 million.
more than that.
I mean, I don't think there's any appetite for residential water in Mendon. It would be
And
commercial.
and then giving the ledge in this town,
Yeah.
Right.
just to go around the lake and say, let's put water and sewer around the lake, and that'll bring it past Meanville and around the
Yeah,
Alicante
you're right.
and all
You're
that.
probably,
But just to put water around the lake, knowing how much ledge is around there,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
you're probably talking 10 million just to do that
Well,
area.
you look at it, yeah, you'd have to do land acquisitions all over the place, purchase land
Yeah, all
for
that.
water
And all those
tank
lots
and
are
pump stations
substandard.
and wells, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, it's a mess over
And then to
there.
put the infrastructure in too.
When they were
Oh,
looking at that whole Kinsley Lane thing, just the engineering to figure out, because it's all like everything's a mess. The lot lines are just kind of whatever, and
Well, I was
I
explaining
know
to
when I bought my house,
engineers
Ju-
get
well,
stuff
Ju-
up there.
Judy told me that when I bought my house, she's like, they don't like dealing with it over there because it's such a complicated.
Well,
everybody's
well,
wells and
well,
somebody
let
else's
me
lot.
let me explain it to you. Okay, Kinsley Lane is a private road.
Right.
Yeah.
I owned to my neighbor across the road's frontage. They had no frontage.
Yeah.
I owned the paved road. Everybody's deed says you have the right to pass and repass over the private lane known as, and literally,
Kevin's way.
literally, to get to my house, I was going over the personal property of like 30 people's things. But it's so bizarre that normally you own to the center of a private road. No, it doesn't work that way in Kinsley Lane. It's I owned to the neighbor's fence, so I owned all the paved road. The next property up on that side across the street owned this, and that was a swamp owned by somebody still in Rhode Island. 3 houses up owned that way. Then you made a curve, and nobody on paper owned part of it. I had all the original deeds going back to the 30s. I got copies of them. And you're reading like a history of land recording. And see, I deal with deeds every day in my job.
Yeah, what a shit show.
Yeah.
Once you get back past 1960, I mean, in New England, we're still dealing with meets and bounds that are done in rods and links.
Yeah.
And my favorite deed of all times, we have an annual assessors meeting where people bring in, like, if you get a really weird deed, you bring it in and read it out loud. The best one ever read out loud was in a Hampden County out west state, and the deed read, "Thence go southeast from the oak tree to where the hired hand eats lunch." And as the assessor said, the oak tree has been gone for a minimum of 180 years. And nobody knows where the hired hand ate lunch because that
The
property's
hired
been sold
hand
10
ate
times
lunch.
since then. But that is, and it's been copied and recopied.
Right, because they just keep the language.
What happens is the lawyers don't do their jobs anymore,
Right.
and they don't
Just
say,
rubber
we need to
stamp it.
survey that in modern terms.
It just says as recorded.
You have to get the fee part though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and they do the
Well,
title search.
Oh, yeah,
They don't
sure.
look at anything.
If all the owners are friends,
Survey.
you just make a survey and say, and cross deed it all.
You don't know how many
But if-
times,
But if they're not friends, it's messy.
you don't know how many times we have people come to the assessors to untangle things or say your map is wrong, and I go, would you please read what's in the bottom of every assessor's map? It says it is not a legal map.
Right.
Yeah.
It is for assessment purposes only. It's an approximate description of your land. We have things all the time where a deed comes in and it's in our records as 3.2 acres, and a new deed comes in that says 3.6. Okay, and you go back as far back as you can go, which in Middlesex County is somewhere in the 1800s, and they're handwritten, and you find that in 1929, somebody copied a handwritten thing of 3.6 as 3.2 on a typewriter, and it was 3.2 all the way up, even though it's never been changed.
Yeah.
And we have to go with what the registry of deeds says. And I don't care if your deed said 3.2, if you get it all corrected and a modern deed says 3.6, we make it 3.6. That's how our deeds get done. The assessor's deeds
The thing
get
that
done.
fascinated
We
me
don't resurvey it. We're not legally responsible.
is that
It's written on our property cards. It's written on our hard copy
Yeah.
maps. It's on the front page of our computer maps. This is not a legal lot description,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and everybody uses it.
I think
as
it's
such.
hard because in other parts of the country they use a different system where it is,
No.
and you get you that
No.
plat system.
You've always
Okay.
got the usually county deed, and that's
Okay.
that's the real actor.
But when you got out of,
But in this area,
you can draw a rough line. I'm trying to think of where it is. I was going to say Ohio's is plat and lot.
well, it's all like the new stuff, you know.
Anything like draw a
California.
line from Pennsylvania straight down.
Yeah.
And anything what there was a certain point in the 1800s as the country went westward. They adopted plat and lot, and there's a there's a description of how many lots are in each plat
Right.
and what size they are, and all the plats, even though a state isn't square, all the plats are square except for the boundary ones on the state borders.
Oh.
And you can literally go in, and I was just with assessors. They find it odd. Anybody from outside of New England finds it extremely odd that we go town by town.
Well, our
Where
meets
they
and
go
bounds, I
county
think,
by
is what our
county.
system is, right?
And
or
for
something.
instance, I was in a session yesterday from Franklin County, Ohio, which is the already okay. Now we have about 6,000 parcels in Mendon. It was 453,518 parcels that
Is
the
that
assessing
every-
office handles.
Every quad had its own parcel.
You still buy a house lot, but most house lots are perfectly shaped,
Yeah.
and the plat is a square that's perfectly. It's like 100 acres
Well,
by
it's like a
100
chain of
acres.
custody back to when the U.S. it was incorporated as a state.
Probably 160 acres by 160 acres.
You know,
Right, but
versus
you
out
can
here where
literally,
it goes
when you
back
go
to
to find-
colonial England.
When you look at aerial maps of land, once you get west of there, they're perfect. Everything's a
Yeah.
square.
Well,
And that's
Ex-
why when you go to like the Midwest and roads are laid out really broad, they have
Well,
unincorporated land, which we don't
except
have.
for one problem.
Yeah.
I was driving in Iowa some years ago, and this is actually typical of the whole West. The surveyor's line, no, it wasn't Corps of Engineers, 1916 or something like that. Every now and then they had to make a correction to account for the curvature of the earth.
Yes,
So,
But
so
they
the road goes,
yes.
Interesting. Interesting.
and there's this 50-foot jog every 10 miles or something.
Yeah.
But you talk to somebody and you're trying to explain that I have a 5-sided lot that is 0.96 acres. And they look at you like you are 3 foot tall and purple with an antenna growing out your head, because some states, like Utah, is perfectly laid out.
Yeah.
Well, the Mormons did that. But Nevada, Montana, they are perfectly laid out. And they don't have a clue on how to assess something below the standard layout.
Yeah, yeah.
And their computer systems, what's called CAMA, computer-aided mass appraisal systems, aren't made to handle irregularly shaped lots or acres. You literally have to go, like at mine, I can put in the square feet and it calculates the acre, or I put in the acreage and it calculates the square feet. It picks. When you go to their system, you can't put in like, what's an acre? 43,560?
43,560, yeah.
Okay, you can only go 1. You can't do, or 2. You can't do 1.2 acres. They don't accept it, and they're not made to accept it. The software wasn't written that way.
Oh,
Or you can do 43,560 and multiply it by 2 or 3. You can't go, I have a 2.96 acre lot.
so what happens when you got a public right-of-way going, when they're cutting a new highway, road, or whatever? So the lots that abut that just become part of the,
They buy the lot.
they buy the
They
entire
buy the
lot.
And
whole lot.
typically, there's a whole bunch of little transactions to
Yes.
straighten things out.
Later, but
Yeah, yeah.
they typically, especially when you go, like when you take Route 90 west of Ohio,
Yeah.
I believe you're going to straight shot out to Oregon or Washington. It's
Well,
it's
And
a corridor
cuts
they
right
bought.
in between these parcels.
Yeah, it goes all the way.
They
It goes all the way to
gradually-
Seattle.
They purchase these parcels.
They
sell
purchase
it,
the
so-
remainder of the parcel and they lease them back to the neighbors,
Yeah.
or they may sell them and then they come up with some formula, or they average it out and say, you've got 1.75 acres. We're just going to say it's 1.
Yeah.
Or they round it up to 2.
Right, right.
And it's up to you to contest it. And their appeal hearings are done on a county basis, and they're all very simple. I mean, this is the thing. I went to a hearing on mediation in Ohio. Okay, I don't like my property tax bill. Here, you come into the Board of Assessors, you file for an abatement, and if we don't give it to you, you go to the State Appellate Tax Board, and they may not give it to you. And then if you don't like what they do, you appeal it to Superior Court, and then the State Appellate Court, and then the State Supreme Court. In Ohio, you have the Board of Revision per county. I don't like it, I appeal to the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision makes a decision. That's final. There's no court adjudication to it.
Wow.
And they mediate away 90% of them.
Now,
And-
the other side of the coin is, and I forget whether it's in New Hampshire or Maine, but there used to be a township whose name was Misery Gore. And if you look at a topological survey map of the area, you'll discover that the misery was for the surveyors who were trying to survey it.
Well, you also have to remember that most of the American West, Midwest and West, was laid out with the survey equipment we have today prior to the lasers. The eyepiece and that, but was measured in rods and links until almost 1900. And links and chains and rods. So the definition of 8-rod road, and why there are so many 8-rod roads in New England, is 8 rods, and a rod is so many chains. 8 rods is the width of a road needed that you can turn a 2 ox yoked together ox cart,
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
turn it around without backing them up. You can literally go do and come out, and that's the width of many of the roads in New England, and all the way out to almost Ohio. Was they were originally made that road. The cart paths in the woods were meant for a horse-drawn logging cart. And to turn them around, you had to go to a clearing and come out.
Oh my God.
So they were one direction.
Yeah, yeah.
They were one width. They were the width of the cart you had.
Yeah.
Hence cart paths. So you would have your
That's good
horse,
information.
you
I
would
never
ride
knew
your
that.
horse,
Yeah.
if you were a farmer, you would ride your horse down the cart path to your fields.
Yeah.
Or if you're still logging them, you would put your equipment in the little cart and take it out there. And then when tractors came, they made the carts the width of the cart path to do it. I mean, if you go to the John Deere factory and see the original plow,
Yeah.
the original John Deere plow was not what we look at today. It was literally the horse-drawn plow that you see in pictures, the guy pushing.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the first John Deere plow, because before that, they did it by hand with a hoe.
Now, you'll be amused that in Michigan, which was, logged back in before 1900,
Yeah,
a lot of this logging was done by cutting things down in the summer, letting them fall, and then when the ground froze over and you could run a sledge over it,
you'd slug them
hauling it
out.
all out and doing something with
Let's
it.
get it
And
off.
if you had a river, you did the log float down the river.
Yeah.
They'd
Right.
tie them together or send them individually down a river to a sawmill.
Yeah.
And the sawmill would be running on the power of the river, but it was very common on the major rivers from the Midwest out to the West Coast. Even in New England, you had little ones were located on the rivers, but they would float the logs like down the Mississippi
Yeah.
to the
yeah.
nearest sawmill, and you would have people in rowboats guiding the logs, or they would last them together. So the whole idea of like log rolling, people standing on the
Yeah,
logs,
yeah.
people would stand on the logs to pull the other ones over.
I mean, there's a reason that loggers' boots have sharp points on the bottom.
They would be walking on them.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
So, but here's a good one for you. We took English law when America was founded. England did not have private property until the 1700s. Everything was owned by the king or queen. Everything. And when you hear the thing like Essex was Lord Essex, okay, as long as the king or queen favored you, they gave you the land to work in whatever. You fell out of favor, they could give it to somebody else. But the king and queen owned it, and they paid them rent at the court. I think it was the king before George III started the concept of letting people own a piece of the land, and that came to America. Until then, in Europe, there was no concept of privately owned land.
No kidding. No, I never knew that.
No, that's why
Yeah,
so
yeah.
many people don't own a house or land. They own an apartment, but originally that was on someone else's land. And since we came from English law, we adopted the English system.
Except in Louisiana.
Yes, where it's adopted the French system. Hence they have parishes. And why do they have parishes? Because France was a Catholic country. But being an assessor is amazing because you actually learn the history of land development through the world. And there is an international property measuring system in Europe. There is a Canadian property measuring system. And we have the American property measuring system. And they're all fractured. They're all different. So like Russia describes property one way, France describes it another. There are some countries that don't have an income tax that they come over to watch what we do and they shake their heads going, oh, we ought to do that. Up until the 1920s, there was no property tax in America. There were income tax and tariffs.
Well, there were taxes on the property that had such quirks in them
Yes.
as measuring the foundation size and
Yeah.
But it didn't go to fund a city or town. It went to the state, and the state allocated it back. It was in the 20s during the Depression that they shifted it and said, let's put that onto the local communities as we started getting built up from rural America, like around World War I to everything.
Yeah.
They shifted it. And the federal government then decided to do income tax, which came around also in the teens.
and got defeated in court, and
Right,
then the
and-
Constitution changed. And,
Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, because nobody was paying it, Franklin Roosevelt
Payroll tax?
instituted
Or income tax?
withholding
Yeah.
from the employer. So it was taken out. You had to apply to get it back. Until then, it was you do a bill at the end of the
The
year and
trust,
send it
yeah.
in, but it was like Italy, where like a third of the population didn't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he invented the idea of payroll withholding when Social Security came around, because you're withholding for that, and that's the modern federal withholding system. But each city and town developed their own, and then states did. And Massachusetts, if you really want to hear the history, we study. There's a string of Supreme Judicial Court decisions going back to the 40s, and there are like 8 major cases before Prop 2.5 that set the groundwork for 2.5. And ever since 1980, when 2.5 passed, all the court cases are based off that. And so when we explain it to people, I actually wrote it up in a handout to give it to people who go, how is my property tax? Why is my property tax this way? It wasn't that way in this state. And I go, here you go. And it's a brief history of why we tax this way.
I mean, in a few words, the Boston system was, if it was a commercial property, it got reassessed every few years.
Yes.
If it was a residential property, it didn't ever get reassessed. It was sold for what it sold originally, even 50 years later.
Right.
And-
even though property values go up.
And back farmland, the reason why farmland is dying off in New England is when Prop 2.5 passed, and all land had to go to 100% full and fair market value. For the first time, all the back acreage got taxed. You used to pay a token, like if you were a farmer living on Providence Road and you had 100 acres, you'd pay a property tax on your house and nothing on the rest of it. Or maybe a penny per
Yeah,
acre
yeah.
on the rest of it. And then they said full and fair market value just at the time this area was growing. So all the old folks who were land rich but cash poor, didn't have any pensions, they're left with backland, and all the flatland went in the 80s and 90s for subdivisions, because builders came in and said, I'll give you $300,000 for your land. And they thought, I've died, go to heaven.
Yeah, gosh, yeah.
But they went from having like $1,000 a year tax bill to a $3,000 or $4,000 a year tax bill and thought the world ended.
Yeah.
So they voted for. It's just amazing looking at it. And for those who didn't live in Mass at the time, you'll love this one. There was fiscal autonomy for the school systems. Before 2.5, Mendon Upton could say, and Mendon sued him a couple of
I was
times,
gonna say, I know, because I've read that whole court case.
the school district could
Fascinating.
legitimately say, we're running on a $5 million budget this year. Next year we won 10, and you had to give it to them. And so everybody's rates would just go up to pay for it. Mendon started suing like 3 or 4 times before Prop 2.5. Mendon sued and lost.
Yeah, they sued, they lost one of them. There's a whole packet up there that the school asked for money. The town sued. The town said no. The school sued,
And got it.
and the school yeah.
And it was called fiscal autonomy for schools. So imagine today with all the mandates. And let's say the state came out and said you have to spend $20,000 per pupil on every student. They just send the town the bill and say you got to raise it, and the town would have to. It didn't matter what you made. It didn't matter what. There is a movement that's just starting in Massachusetts to change the property taxes to be based on your income so that seniors pay less. And the rationale
You
is,
think it's gonna fly?
no, but,
Because you still gotta generate,
no.
you still gotta generate all this income, so.
Okay,
then-
no, here's how it would work.
it's-
But here's how it would work. Everybody files a state tax return with the Department of Revenue, including corporations. Okay? The state can tell, DOR could tell you right now, if you say, give me the value of all taxes paid from any address in 01756. And let's say they said it's $100 million. Just pick a figure out of the air.
Yeah,
Town meeting says we need to raise 20 million. And the normal way that would work is that's the tax levy divided by the value of the town gives you the tax rate. You would divide that instead by the value of the taxes people pay, and the tax rate would be much smaller. And then you would go around and apply that tax rate to the value. And so if Alan is living on Social Security only and files that he and his wife are making $25,000 a year, their tax bill is going to be based on their income, while the guy living in the $6 million house, making $1 million a year, his tax bill is going to be like that.
Yeah.
So you're paying proportionate income. What we're trying to do, and I was on the phone with the DOR today, that's another task force I'm on, is they're going to give us, we picked 10 cities and towns at random. They're going to give us that number for the calendar 21 tax bills that were just filed. They're going to give us this number at the end of the year. And we are going to take the fiscal 23 tax bills for those 10 cities and towns, run them through there, and ask the assessors to come up with what people would pay compared to what they're paying now to see if it works statewide.
Hmm.
Then if it does, it's going to go to a legislative study committee
Really?
where it will be buried.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
But the cities and towns will get the
Because the
same
people
amount
that
of
are
money.
paying big
Oh, but
taxes are
here's
gonna
the,
pay more
here's the,
taxes.
here's the kicker.
They can't even get that
Here's the kicker.
$1 million income thing on the ballot. let
Yeah,
alone
but here's
to
the
a vote.
kicker. Dan, you love this. If they do that, we've already been told they'll do away with state aid to cities and towns.
Of course.
And they'll make you survive on this system.
But the net total will be the same, just apportioned differently.
Yeah,
Right, so that for
So-
instance,
So it's basically gonna
you-
defund
Well,
the
you got,
cities
you
and
got,
towns
you got
more.
half the state
You-
population that's, I don't know.
you would be paying more than he and I pay.
I would.
But the
yeah.
point is the total money Mendon would receive would be the same, just apportioned differently based on income.
Apportioned
And
differently.
then we lose our state aid, of course,
That's what one of the legislators told
because
us.
they want to defund everything, but then they don't want, yeah.
Here's what I don't
I mean,
get.
it's just not enough money to go around to pay,
This
you
was a
know.
lunchtime,
you still
this
gotta
was a
collect the
lunchtime
revenue.
You
discussion
either
this
got
week.
more
From the state.
taxes or less services.
This was a
Yeah.
lunchtime discussion this week. The state had roughly
Yeah, ain't gonna happen.
between 6 and 9 billion this year over projections. And they're arguing on how to spend it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm like, you got two options from my book, which is give every taxpayer back 1% or 2% of what they paid, permanently lower the taxes, or how much debt does the state have long term? Take the $9 billion, put, half of it in a rainy day fund, take $5 billion of it, and pay off $5 billion in long-term debt on all the borrowings they do, and get rid of it. And you know what the common answer at lunch was? That's too simple. Because people were going, we don't have a income problem, we have a spending problem. It's I got an extra dime, I want to spend it and give it to somebody, but not give it back or lower taxes.
Right. But yeah, if we
And
get
then you
more
have
taxes-
this guy Doty, whatever it is, running for governor. If elected, I'm gonna do. He's a Republican.
Oh,
If elected, I'll do this. And I'm sitting there going, no, the legislature does that. I'm gonna lower property taxes. You have nothing to do with that. I'm gonna do this. I said, you can't lower state spending. The legislature does that. And I'm sitting there going, you know what? I'm the rare guy who actually knows how the legislative system works. The average person sitting there go, I'll vote for that guy.
Yeah.
We got
Guys
anything
talking
left
about
in?
gas.
at least half of the things that Governor Kennedy opts for are things that they can't do.
Right. If you're in a state where the legislature is 80, 90% Democrat, and you're running as a Republican governor, you can't promise I'm going to lower this or do that. You need all the legislators behind you. At least Baker, the operating system is, I loved Weld and I love Baker because they knew how to work as a minority governor and get what they wanted by basically closing their eyes to everything else the other guys wanted.
I agree, they both did a great job. I don't know. Trump says promises made, promises kept, right?
I promised to overthrow the government.
There are a few of those guys, fortunately not in New England, but
Yeah, we have bizarre laws in this state.
is there anything else there?
No, are we adjourned?
Yeah, no, we should do. Did we go through the agenda?
Yeah,
Yeah, is
Motion to
that,
adjourn?
the rest of it's just placeholder stuff.
I think we adjourned about 20 minutes ago.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think so.
Bye, folks.